Are we now closer to nuclear war, or are Russia's recent updates to its nuclear doctrine just saber rattling? For a closer look, we're joined by military analyst Kervin Aucoin. Welcome back, Kervin. In a phone call with reporters, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Russia reserves the right to use nuclear weapons in response to an attack against it with conventional weapons. How close are we to the first combat use of nuclear weapons since World War II?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure to be here with you guys. One thing is a launch of a nuclear weapon would be a strategic, tactical, name anything mistake from Russia. I get that their new doctrine says if anybody or any country, if it's even non-nuclear, is provided weapons from a nuclear country and they use those weapons, that Russia reserves the right to use those weapons. Yeah, Russia reserves the right to do whatever they want to do. Are they going to do that? I don't see that happening. I think this was Vladimir Putin having to assure his people that Russia has their back, and if Russia is attacked and a civilian casualty occurs, that Russia will retaliate against that country. But I just don't see a nuclear weapon, especially being used on a NATO country. We could see tactical nuclear weapons used. That's a lot lower on the nuclear level. So the miscalculation there would be, what's the fallout after that tactical nuclear weapon is used on a military site? Does that fallout move to Poland? Does it move towards Germany? And then does NATO get involved if that happens? A lot of questions going on with that, but as we stand right now, we're inching closer to possibly nuclear weapons being used, but we're still not close to that.
And Kervin, you mentioned the potential use of tactical nuclear weapons, which are weaker than full-blown nuclear weapons that we think of, used in Japan in the 1940s. Can you describe a bit about what these tactical nuclear weapons are for our audience?
Yeah, so you're talking about a lower grade nuclear weapon that would typically be used within the atmosphere. The nuclear weapon would then explode. It's kind of like an EVP, an electronic pulse that would knock out communications, knock out other pieces of equipment, signals equipments that could be used within Ukraine. And it's definitely just for military use. So it'd be used in a military site to kind of shut down all communications. Now that fallout gets into the atmosphere, and then the nature takes its course. It can then move towards any number of areas. So watching the weather would be something everyone's going to need to do. I really don't think that Putin takes that miscalculated step to escalate even further. He wants to show that NATO is actually escalating this, and he's going to saber rattle until maybe NATO makes a mistake. Putin doesn't want to get in a war with NATO. I don't care what he says about it. Yeah, NATO is encroaching on the borders there in Russia, but to have the most powerful military, the United States, along with NATO, fighting a war against Russia, that war ends very quickly. And at that point, we may see nuclear weapons used, but we're not there yet.
Okay, so you're saying this is saber rattling more so. To add to this, Russia now considers an attack from a non-nuclear country with the help of a nuclear country to be considered a joint attack between those two countries. Will that stance and the other stance we were talking about deter Ukraine from using US-made weapons to hit targets inside Russia?
Absolutely not. Ukraine has finally, and the United States, to be quite honest, has finally decided, hey, we're just going to let a bully be a bully and call his bluff. And they've called Putin's bluff. So now he's moving the goalpost yet again. He talks about these red lines, that once Ukraine goes past this red line, there's going to be something happening. I think the use of the ATACMS and the fact that Ukraine did use them on Russian soil, which led to this announcement of new nuclear policy, that's probably where Putin's going to stay on that. He's showing that, like I said, to his people, I'm here to protect you. We will use these weapons if we have to. And if the state of Russia is looking to be defeated, we may use them. But yeah, this is just a message to the people of Russia that Putin's there for them. And throughout this war, he's going to try to win this conflict.
Okay, so you're saying this is more of a message to the people inside of Russia, but might Russia do anything differently in response to a perceived joint attack between Ukraine and the United States? I mean, previously, I'm assuming Putin wasn't viewing these attacks by Ukraine the same way that he will be now.
Yeah, absolutely. What we're looking at are ballistic missile strikes on huge population centers. That's why the embassy in Kyiv is closed, because there could be an imminent attack there. That is what the intelligence community is looking at as far as what Putin is going to do for retaliation. So look at Kyiv getting getting struck by Russian ballistics, Lviv, which is closer to Poland. So Russia's going to during this winter, the winter months where there's not a lot going on the battlefield, you're going to see a lot more ballistic missiles, drone usage, and those are going to be on large population centers. Putin is going to try to make life very difficult for the Ukrainians so that they think twice about using the ATACMS even further. But I don't see Ukraine stopping. They've got Donald Trump as president-elect. His inauguration's in January of 2025. They're not waiting around to see what Donald Trump is going to do whenever his administration takes over.
Yeah, and indeed, Donald Trump has said that he would end the war between Ukraine and Russia before he even gets inaugurated on January 20th. So we do have 2 months between now and then. A lot could happen. Military analyst Kervin Aucoin, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.